All right. Good afternoon, Opening Act community. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. So we are super excited. We're going to have a conversation with what we believe is a hot topic and a necessary topic as the world is adjusting to this new norm. And so this afternoon, I have some special guests with me. I will be chatting with Ami Scherson from Equity and Arts Leadership. She's an Equity and Arts Leadership Associate with American for the Arts. We also have one of our very own, Kilea Francis, an Opening Act, Act 2 Fellow. We have Carol Lola, which is our DIAL Intern with Opening Act this summer. And then we also have, again, one of our very own, Sarah Branch. She is our Programs and Act 2 Coordinator and a former DIAL Intern. And so again, we're super excited to have this conversation. Just a little bit about Opening Act for those of you that are not familiar with us. We were founded in the year 2000 to support New York City teens that have the least access to high quality education, economic stability, and support networks. Our organization, we seek to level the playing field for students attending our country's most segregated and inequitable school system by offering them opportunities to develop their social emotional learning competencies, which we all know are key indicators of long-term success, such as positive self-identity, social skills, and self-management. Since the inception of the organization, we have reached nearly 5,000 young adults across the city, 70 schools across 5 boroughs. Our innovative, high quality, free, yes, I said free, youth development programs are essential to the success of young people, not only for their current situation, but also for their further development. And so this afternoon, we are going to specifically chat about the importance of sustaining paid internships for our young people in the current and near future. And so again, we are very, very happy to have you. And I'm going to kick this off by talking to Ami. And my first question for you, Ami, in this current economic climate with an unstable job market, why are paid internships important now? And Ami, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you so much for this question, Rita. I think in turn, the question I think of is, where is there value in an unpaid internship? I think people need to be paid for their labor, and it's very important as we set this precedent, especially during this crisis. Paid internships are already very sparse in the arts field and other fields, and to add a pandemic, it's so much more. It's important to have internship opportunities as we start to think about how we can support the next generation of folks in the arts field and other folks coming into these careers.
Mm-hmm. And so when you think about our current climate and COVID-19, how has that impacted paid internships compared to before the pandemic?
So I can only speak from the experiences of leading the DIAL internship as well as the other organizations that we worked with, but it seems like many internships are being canceled, as that is the first things that folks can do to support their full-time staff as well as their organizational budget. So it's important for us, specifically with the DIAL program, to maintain the values of the program and being able to support folks of color that are often so deprived of these types of opportunities.
Fantastic, thank you. Now I'm going to direct this next question to Sarah. Sarah, what is the value in paid internship opportunities, particularly in arts nonprofits?
Absolutely. I think that paid internship opportunities are really key in creating sustainable pathways to employment in the arts. We're talking about embracing our future artists, creatives, critical thinkers, audience members. These are people that really deserve to be paid for their time, their unique perspective, and they also bring so much value to the organization. There's so many conversations right now about equity and diversity in our field, and paid internships is a really key component to that, I think.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. And so I'm going to open this question up to the group at large. Why do you each think it's important to continue to bring young people in paid internships, especially right now? And I'll caveat that with yes, anding what Sarah just said about young people offering a very unique perspective to the work, especially considering everything that's happening now. And so for a lot of nonprofit organizations who were accustomed to their traditional approach at the work that they do and serving the young people or whomever their audience is in a very traditional way, now with this virtual climate, right, and the social distancing and the opportunity for us to not only be creative and innovative, but to offer our opportunities on a broader level. I think that paid internships provides nonprofit organizations just with an opportunity, again, as Sarah just said, to understand and learn more about how we can continue to support and do our work with the unique perspective. But I'll open it up and have you all chime in.
Yeah, Zareta, I like what you said about the unique perspective. That's why I think exactly why I think we should continue to bring young people into these paid internships, because when we're internships are usually when you're in like your later stages of high school or when you're just going into college. So we're here in that between area where they don't know where to put you. You can't get a career. You can't just be in school sometimes. So these internships can just help you have a way to like support yourself while you're in between things. It can help you build skills that you probably didn't get in school or couldn't understand in school. And also the relationships are very important too. The relationships, in my opinion, just made the internship always like more beneficial.
Mm-hmm. Carol, you want to jump in?
Yes, so I agree with what Kylie's saying, and I think that a lot of times it's like a give and take. Like both the intern themselves learns a lot and has like a true experience in a field that they're interested in or interested in pursuing like a higher position in potentially in the future, but also the organization itself can like get a new fresh perspective, can get so much like information from the student or from this intern who is kind of in a way looking from the outside in and learning about the culture and a lot of things that maybe an organization will consider the norm. If a new fresh pair of eyes comes in, they may be like, oh, actually that may not be, or there may be a better way, or there may be other factors to consider in like a culture of a work environment.
And Carol, I have a follow-up question to that, and Sarah, you can chime in. And so we're talking about at the organizational level how impactful paid internships are. What about the personal development level for interns?
Absolutely.
Okay, you'll take it, Sarah?
Sure, yeah, I'll take that one. Yeah, I think that for me personally, when we were first talking about like what's going to happen with the summer and remote internships, are internships really valuable if they are remotely? The things that first came to mind for me were like meeting up with someone during coffee, just, you know, by happenstance, things that you can't necessarily do remotely. But what I've been so impressed by from both the Act 2 Fellows and Carol, who is our DIAL intern with us this summer, is that those things are still organically happening in the remote space. And I believe that there still is so much value in just getting on a quick Zoom call for Carol and I to chat over lunch. Building your network, meeting new people, just sitting in remotely on a meeting that might not be particularly about your work, but you're just there to observe and meet new people. I think that at first I was really doubtful of our ability to create spaces like that in this new remote work environment. But what I have been shown by the fellows and by Carol time and time again is that it is absolutely possible to create those spaces and those opportunities to make that one-on-one connection, to build your network, to have practical application of things that you're working on in this new remote workspace.
Thank you, Sarah. So internship programs like DIAL and Opening Acts Act 2 program are leading the way in youth development. Why do you think, Sarah, Carol, Kylie, chime in, why do you think paid internships like these are so critical within the communities that we serve?
I was thinking about this I tried to say this earlier, I couldn't get it out, but basically like what we were talking about with the norms, this is so important because we already had a discussion like this in our Act 2 meetings where the norms and like what's expected of professionalism and stuff like that, like what, like that type of stuff was used to discourage people like me and people like us that join these internship programs. Like these norms are not, like for our generation, those norms are not the same, you know what I mean? Like for older generations, a workplace may look a certain way, but yes, having these young people from all these different communities coming in and making them, like having them join a workforce and having them lead and do stuff like that, I think it helps us expand our idea of what professionalism is, especially when we're sitting here behind computers. Those ideas of professionalism, those norms are just out the window. This is not what we're doing. Yeah. So it's really, yeah.
Thank you so much for touching on that. I think it's really important to allow people to work as their own authentic selves. It doesn't matter if there's a human being that walks behind you. We tell interns to show up as they are. And if there are times where you need to shut off your camera, that's okay too. And I think it's important, especially as we talk about professionalism, that we can start to break that and unmask that. I think this is a very interesting time to reset the precedent, reset the norms that were created. And I think that paid internships are also a way that we could do that, of really paying people for their labor, for their thoughts, their ideas, for showing up for their authentic selves. And hopefully even during this time, during the pandemic, this will be even a greater way that we could show, yes, artists deserve to be paid right now. Young folks need to be paid right now. And I think if we could do this now, we can continue this in the future as well.
Thank you, Ami. Carol, do you want to chime in?
Yes, I was just going to say that I think especially in the communities that Opening Act serves, a big thing is that for many of the young people, they may not have the option of doing an unpaid internship, and that's always been a problem, not even just in the arts industry, but in many different industries where sometimes there are people who just can't afford to not be paid for their time. Because whether it's, it comes down, am I going to do a unpaid internship that, I can put on my resume and might help me get a job in the future, or am I going to get a minimum wage job that will help me pay bills or help me pay for my next semester of schooling so I can continue and complete my degree. So I think that that's an important part with the whole conversation of why paid internships are so important and so critical, especially in, underserved communities.
Thank you, Carol. I don't know, Sarah, if you want to chime in.
I think they got it. Exactly that.
I yes and that as well. And I think that's something that was just mentioned is that paid internships, they do offer opportunities. So it's that connective tissue, right, between youth development, opportunity, and then also preparing our young people to enter into the career world ready and prepared and equipped, and having those relationships and those conversations. So I think now that we're in this virtual world of working remotely, it also is helping to, as a nonprofit leader, it's really also helping me to understand some of the thoughts that I've had around even what professionalism is, and so this is super helpful. It's super informative. And for both the intern and the nonprofits, it is empowering us to continue to be able to be responsive to the needs of our communities. And so I'm going to direct this question to Ami. Can you tell us a little bit about American for the Arts and DIAL and how you have adapted your program to live in a virtual space?
Thank you for that. I will try to elevator pitch this as short and concrete as possible. So Americans for the Arts is a national service organization, and our primary focus is to advance the arts in America. So all the arts for all the people. And so we do this through resource development, advocacy, programming, creating networks, and so much more through all different fields of the arts, whether it's public art, arts education, government affairs. We're able to do this through a breadth of spaces within the arts. And so the Diversity in Arts Leadership Program was created 28 years ago to provide more opportunities for those who are underrepresented within arts leadership, so BIPOC folks on the LGBTQIA+ spectrum, folks with disabilities, gender non-binary folks, etc. We do this by providing a paid internship, support through a business mentor, professional development opportunities, cultural events, or I guess virtual cultural events, and also the network of DIAL itself, the cohort itself. And so the past 27 years have been completely in person. So it has been very interesting for us to first advocate as to why we should continue this program in a virtual capacity in the first place. The DIAL program was created to address the issues that there are not many folks of color and other underrepresented identities within arts executive leadership. So by us cutting this program, we recognize that we would create even larger barrier for folks, especially during a time where it's hard to find an internship, enter the job market, and also have job security. So there are many changes that we had set into place to create an equitable virtual internship. So first is that we remained honest and transparent to our networks, our interns, our arts hosts, our organizations, about the changes that were going to happen, and also when we found a solution, we would let folks know. We created space to listen to the concerns through one-on-one conversations and discussions. And so, for example, one repeated concern that we had heard was that many organizations did not have the capacity to pay the partial stipend, which was $1,500. And so we were able to look at our budget, and we're privileged enough to be able to find money in our budget to cover that expense, so folks didn't have that barrier, because we didn't want to create even more of a barrier into this program. So then we thought about ways that we can make our resources open and available to the public. So for example, folks would apply to the DIAL program or other college-age students. And so we did this by making our professional development program, DIAL Studio, completely free to the public and continue to send out different additional opportunities to our network. This and many other changes are available in a blog post that Nikki and I had written about all of our changes, because there are many, and I could keep talking. So I will put that in the chat box, and if you want to email me for more information, happy to answer those questions as well.
Thank you so much, Ami. And I see we have a question in the chat, and it actually is a segue to my next question for you, and then I'll follow up. Are there strategies for nonprofits who are facing budget restrictions to maintain paid internship opportunities? And so, Ami, I don't know if you want to respond to that.
Yes, I'm happy to. And again, I'll preface this with, this is from experiences of us talking to folks in the field that have are leading internship opportunities, as well as our peers in the DIAL network. So I would suggest finding similar programs to DIAL who could supplement or support you in your internship needs monetarily, or that be through additional resources. I think local arts agencies are also open to having collaborations. And one specific tip that we learned recently was that a lot of arts organizations are partnering specifically with universities and colleges to find funding. So here at Americans for the Arts, we currently have 3 school-funded fellows, and they were able to work with their arts administration educational program or through their school's educational or career programming to find that. And so there are ways that organizations can actually contact different universities to be able to find more financial funding for their interns.
Fantastic, thank you. Carol, this is your first ever internship, and you were absolutely amazing. And so I just have to give Carol a quick shout out. And so she, you know, since day one, she stepped into the role with such enthusiasm and was very open and eager to contribute to our response to the pandemic, specifically in development and our programs department. And so she had a dual role with us, and she gave each of those roles 100% of the best of who she is. And again, she did offer some very unique perspectives. And so with Carol, with this being your very first ever internship, what did you think, or what do you currently think about it being a virtual experience?
So I think that at first it was intimidating. It was something very new. It was something that I wasn't mentally prepared for. But I think that as I went into the role and as I continued to like work in the role, it became easier, especially I think with this case in particular, because of the pandemic. It wasn't only just my position, it was also like everyone on the staff had to work on going virtual. So it was very even in a way, because just as I was learning how to work virtually, this was the same problems that many of the other members on the staff were also facing. And I think a big part of it is just being accommodating and being flexible. I think the staff was very flexible with me when I had Wi-Fi issues or when my dog was barking in the background. And it's kind of like Ami mentioned earlier about, being authentic and just, having that like empathy with one another. So I think that like, even though it was virtual, it was still a really good learning experience. And I was able to use all the knowledge I had learned in school and put it in a practical sense. But at the same time, it was still an adjustment. But I think, like you kind of mentioned, it's all about trying to like stay as positive as possible, given all the circumstances, and not being afraid of asking for help. I know there were a lot of times when I went to my supervisor with questions about just simple things, and even if it's simple, all it takes is one G chat or one email, and it can get clarified, and not having that like fear, because I feel like everybody didn't understand, oh, where is the link to the meeting, or how do you use Google Meet, those kind of things.
And so what advice would you offer other young people who are seeking out internships in the coming months?
I would say just don't be afraid of going out there. I know a big thing for me personally, since it was my first internship and I didn't really have much professional, whatever you would consider professional experience, but I just went out there. I applied for DIAL, and I was like, the worst thing that they can say is no. But even if they say no, going through that process, filling out the application, doing the virtual interview, like all of that was helping me. So even if I didn't get this internship, I already had the practice of going through an interview and answering questions. A big thing for me was if I didn't get it, I was going to reach out to him and be like, do you have any advice or any tips on what I could have done better, how I could have answered questions better, or anything in that sense. I think they're just not being afraid. I think that a lot of students and a lot of kids my age are afraid of that rejection, but I feel like that's part of the process. Not every internship you'll apply to, you'll get into, but like I said, the worst thing is they'll say no or apply again, and you will.
Thank you. And I think another perspective that I have about this is that we're all learning together, right? This is a new experience for us all. It's not exclusive at all. And so I definitely encourage organizations to continue to seek out opportunities to offer paid internships. I know that Ami put a resource in the chat. At Opening Act, we also have our Act 2 fellows who are seeking internships this fall. And so, we learn as we go. And the great thing about it is the more people that you have at the table with different perspectives, I think the greater the impact is as we continue again to navigate in this virtual world. And so now let's talk to Sarah. Sarah, who is a previous DIAL intern. Talk to us about your experience. How did it shape you in your career currently at Opening Act?
Absolutely. I cannot, it's so hard for me to talk about how important the DIAL experience was for me, because I think it really led me into this career that I'm still exploring now. But I was a DIAL intern in the summer of 2016, and I was working in the development department at Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And I just had an incredible time. I think just being in that space, which was this energetic, really exciting, challenging space, really pushed me to learn so much about where I wanted to be in the arts world. I was kind of floating in a lot of different directions in college, and it really helped me define what I was interested in exploring further. And beyond DIAL, I also participated in a fellowship program called the Downtown Brooklyn Arts Management Fellowship, which had a similar opportunity for fellows to explore different areas in arts management, to kind of figure out what really stuck with them as what they're really passionate about. And both of those experiences led me to Opening Act. I found out about Opening Act through DIAL, through the DIAL network, which I am still a part of now, and I still am very much in communication with my fellow DIAL interns. And I also have kind of pursued a career in a similar types of programs now with the Act Two Fellows program. I have been really supported by the people who created DIAL and who created the Downtown Brooklyn Fellowship that I mentioned. And I would love to be that person for other young people who are in a similar place that I was in and sort of wanting to explore and figure out where they want to grow and where they want to pursue their own professional interests.
And can you talk to us about the transition when you had to transition the Act Two Fellows program to a full online program?
Absolutely. So just as you were saying, Z, about all of us kind of learning in real time together and collectively, I have been doing the same with the fellows, and they've shown me a lot of grace. And I hope, Kylie, you feel like we have showed you grace as well. Because yeah, there's so many growing pains. I've never been in a role where I have these really close relationships with 8 fellows and really want to support each of them and give all of them my attention and my support. So it's been difficult, but it's also been really exciting. I think it's pushed us to be the most creative we've ever been in our day jobs, and I find that really exciting. I think that as we've mentioned about the idea of professionalism, there's so many things that in this moment we've had the opportunity to really like deconstruct and break down and piece apart and decide, like, what do we actually need? Do we actually need to have this meeting? Does it have to be that long? Can it be an email? Can it be a worksheet? Can it be a workshop? So I'm really trying to embrace this challenging moment to find opportunities to be more creative than we had been previously, for just having had the opportunity to maybe be a little bit more comfortable in what we had thought of as normal standard working dynamics.
Great, thank you. Kylie, what has your experience been like as an Act Two Fellow?
So far, I didn't even know what to expect, to be quite honest, but my experience so far, I feel like I've had, this is definitely one of my better internships, definitely one of my best ones. They pay me and they treat me like a person and they support me, and through this, I've definitely gotten more social. It just made me uncomfortable, but I was making myself uncomfortable in reality. So I just have this network of people here that are always there to support me, gently pushing me to do what I gotta do, even if I'm not comfortable. I've gotten to know a lot more alumni than before. So yeah, I've just been doing a lot of socializing. It's helped me be more social.
Which is great considering, you know, we're all social distancing, right? So to be able to, through your internship, have the opportunity to socialize on a greater level and then to step outside of your comfort zone, I think that's what this has done for a lot of us, especially those of us who are self-proclaimed introverts. And so through opportunities like internships, it does, although it is very uncomfortable, you can pat yourself on the back because you can see your growth in real time. And so kudos to you, Kylie, for becoming more social. And another question for you is, through Opening Acts Act Two Fellow program, you were able to secure an internship through Futures and Options. What did you gain from that internship experience?
Okay, from that experience, that was the internship that taught me the difference between a paid and unpaid internship and how much better it is to be paid at an internship. I definitely learned how to network. I made so many friends. Like they liked me so much that we like still have contact with each other. It was a really good experience. I learned in-depth things about theater, but most importantly, it was about like the unpaid and paid aspects, because right before that internship, I was at an unpaid one where I was working for free for 6 months for a minimum wage part-time job like a year later. So it was kind of ridiculous, but like at Futures and Options, we had our trainings every week. They helped us just prepare to be professional settings, non-professional, like more relaxed settings. And they also helped us prepare for literally whatever we were going into. So I thought it was pretty good. And after that internship, I've never been able to not get a job. I've been able to get any job I wanted after that. So I'm very grateful for Act Two for that and for Futures and Options for that.
Amazing, amazing. So let's talk some stats right now. And then I'll open up the floor and you can all chime in. And so nonprofit arts and cultural organizations support 4.6 million full-time jobs nationwide. Less than 20% of nonprofit executive leaders are people of color. The majority of students who accepted unpaid internships came from families who made over $80,000 a year. An astounding 54% of internships in government are unpaid. And we also know that only 5% of congressional staffers are Black. Any thoughts about that?
I want to talk about the previous institution I worked at, because it was literally like that. It was just free labor to serve people that were not the people serving. And I think that's the difference with Opening Act, is that they're hiring their own, like the own people that they are serving to help serve them as well. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So it doesn't just feel like I'm just free labor to go help this organization make more money, because that's just what it feels like. It felt like before. And just to have an organization like places like DIAL, places like Opening Act that would like provide these types of opportunities, it's just, yeah, just that's what I think about that.
Sarah, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I think when we're looking at these statistics and, you know, I've heard people say, well, we're trying to hire more people of color, but we don't know where they are. We can't find them. A huge part of that is we have to really take a step back and talk about what is the entry point to these jobs. Mm-hmm. Is it accessible? Is it equitable? Are we really welcoming people into this space? Are there supports there for once they're there, so that it's a positive experience for them? And I think a huge part of this is in the hiring process, are you looking for internship experience on your candidates' resumes? If you are, then what are you doing to help create those internship possibilities so that people can get in the door, can hand you that resume with what you're looking for on it? So it's really about like taking a step back and again, like deconstructing these things that we've become really comfortable with that really aren't working. We can see in these statistics that it hasn't been working.
Thank you, Sarah. And so I am going to open up the floor right now. If any of our attendees, again, thank you so much for joining us. If you have a question, and you can direct the question to the full panel or to one of our panelists, please put it in the chat and we'll make sure we answer those questions. And while we're doing that, I have a follow-up question for all of you. So what was that aha moment, right? Like as a young person, where I don't know if someone told you about an internship or you just made a decision after reading something at school, talking to one of your peers, but what was that aha moment that for you, where you made a decision to say, you know what, I am going to pursue an internship?
I can start. For me personally, it was my brother. He graduated from, he was in college and he was trying to look for internships for his major, and he just couldn't because none of the internships that were possible or that he was looking into were paid. And at that moment, just like financially, we needed him to work. You know, we needed him to make money. So he wasn't able to do an internship. So when he graduated, it was like Sarah mentioned, a lot of the entry-level positions for his major, which was PR, required, you know, a year or two of internships or work experience or professional experience that he just didn't have. So to me, from that moment, I just knew, okay, like I need to have that experience. Since I'm pursuing a business degree, I need to have that experience. Like I need to be able to say, like, I did an internship. But in the back of my mind, I still had that idea of like, I know I still need to get paid. Like even pre-pandemic, I'm like, no, I need to get paid for my work. So that allowed me at least to, you know, do a little more research because I think that's part of the problem, where even though there are some internships that are paid, you know, there are some big ones, and I would consider DIAL like one of those like big ones many people do know about, but that makes them more competitive to get. And then others that may be offered are a little more hidden, or you have to know someone who will tell you that, oh, my organization has a paid internship. So for me, it was that moment of like realizing that if I want to get in, like if I want to be able to have that entry level position, I'm going to need experience, but also realizing that I need to get paid for my experience.
Personally, I was in my senior year of high school. I had a very empty schedule. I was like, I need to do something, and I need to do something that's like productive and will get me somewhere. Like, and it was unpaid, but I did want the experience, and every single internship I had did have different aspects to it. Like, none of it was the same topic or the same like theme to it. Like, I was teaching in one, I was directing in one, and I don't even know what I was doing in another one, but I was doing something in another one. You know, like we're all doing something different in each one. So it's just to have all this different experience while you're still young before you can say you have a career. You know, it's good to just look around.
And so we have some questions that came in. And so one question is, any advice on how to make the case to funders that this is a priority? And so I'm going to go ahead and answer that question. You know, I was having a conversation with one of the opening act staff members yesterday, and we talked about this, and it's my personal and professional opinion that if we don't offer paid internships to young people and opportunities that interest them, that it will disrupt their professional development. Right? So it diminishes their dreams because, you know, like the stat said, right? Unfortunately, in under-resourced communities, internships are not as easily accessible, and they're not often one of the first things that young people are offered, right? And so if we don't, organizations like Opening Act and DIAL, if we are not intentional about creating opportunities for young people in these types of communities, then we could potentially be perpetuating, right, poverty, perpetuating, you know, homelessness and joblessness. And so a paid internship is that resource connector. It is the connective tissue that allows young people, like Kylie just said, to do something positive with themselves, to contribute, grow, and develop simultaneously. And then in the long term, right, prepare them for economic stability. And so that's one of my advice. That's one of the things that I really believe that funders need to understand, why paid internships are a priority, because it's long-term impact. It's long-term impact. And it's just great to have young people around. It's great to hear their thoughts and their perspectives and their creativity and innovation. It's definitely something that I think that we all need to embrace and accept and actively seek out. How can administrators of paid internship opportunities make sure the experience is valuable and life-changing as it should be?
I'd be happy to answer this question because I love it. Thank you so much, Matthew, for asking it. I think there's like multiple ways to look at it, but I think in like a technical sense, providing very substantive projects that are challenging and teach new skills, but also amplify the intern's confidence, goals, and perspectives. Because many of the times when folk thinks of internship, it's always like an extra project that someone might put aside. But I think it's really important as intern supervisors to think about, okay, what does this specific intern want to learn? Is it they have a really strong skill in graphic design and want to utilize it more? Or is it that they don't really understand development and they would really like to understand a budget? And then I guess this goes into more the holistic sense of transparency and honesty and supporting your intern in that way. I think personally, I've had unpaid internships where I felt very undervalued because of the tone or the way that people would speak to me, or the projects I would give, or even feedback that they would give me, whether it's like hiding information. And that's something that I try to avoid doing. One example that I have is, I know that a lot of folks, for example, if someone were to miss a meeting, would immediately think of discipline, of like, you were not here. Instead, think about reframing it in a way of, what is going on right now? We are in a pandemic. Instead of thinking of it from a disciplined mindset, come to your intern and say, hey, I I saw that you were not here. I just wanted to check in. What are ways that I can accommodate for you? That change in wording can make a space more welcoming, more honest. And I think those are ways that we as intern supervisors can create more honesty, openness, and a really great experience that they can then go on into other internships and other jobs with.
Thank you, Ami. Does Carol or Kylie want to chime in?
Yeah, playing off of what Ami was saying, I think that as intern supervisors, like I know
Oh, she's frozen.
personally for me, going into like another internship or going to another like full-time position or whatever is next for me, because of my experience with opening act with the DIAL program, it's like a professional, so I understand like what environment I should be in, if that makes any sense. Like I have that understanding.
Thank you. We have another question. What can be done to get funding for paid internships? And so I'll respond to that. I think one of the things that can be done is actively seek out organizations that have internship programs, because often internships are paid, already paid opportunities through grants, and organizations are simply just looking for placement, right? And so often I think that organizations perceive internships as I have to pay the intern, but there are tons of organizations that have strategic partners where their interns are paid through a grant or some other type of funding. And again, the organization is just really working with the young people on their development so that they can be placed. And so my the first thing I would suggest is definitely do some research on organizations that serve young people. And then just, you know, right now, everything is virtual. Tons of organizations are hosting webinars. I definitely would suggest as an organization that you potentially host a webinar saying that you're seeking internships. And so the great thing about this digital landscape is that our reach extends far and beyond what it has in the past. But again, I would say just definitely start to look in positive youth development organizations and see what opportunities arise. And then also, we know that summer youth employment was impacted this past summer. We know that, you know, there are college students, high school seniors who their internship opportunities, you know, unfortunately may not happen. And so also reaching out to local high schools to see what their opportunities are for their students. But there's a myriad of ways. It just may take some research. There's another question. Have you heard any orgs link internships to succession planning? And so I have not. I will tell you what we're doing as an organization here at Opening Act. And so interns, our Act 2 Fellows program, for example, they are embedded, and we're continuing to embed their voices and embed their needs and their thoughts and ideas into the future scope of the work that we do. And so that's one of the ways that even as we're thinking about succession planning, we're just making sure that we elevate their voices in addition to providing them with the tools, the strategies, and the resources that they need. And so that's potentially one way that you can link internships to succession planning. But I really think that that's on an org by org case basis. Hi, everyone. I'm a DOOR staff, and I work with the foster care population with funding to supply paid internship. How can I collaborate with your organization to mentor our young people through an internship while my program pays them? And so for anyone that's in the chat right now, if you're looking for interns, here's an open door right here. Thank you so much, Rasha. And if anyone needs additional information, you can reach out to us, Opening Act. And then we also have DIAL. So you have 3 organizations right here that have young people that are actively seeking and ready and prepared for internship opportunities. Another question is, having a hard time finding placement sites for our interns as everything is remote now. Any advice? Sarah, I'll let you take that one.
Sure. I think that just like Zareta was just saying, like right now I'm looking in the chat and all these connections are being made in real time of people either looking for an intern or looking to have an intern, talking about ways that we can collaborate and make it happen. So I think just creating spaces like this to talk about it and to say, this is what I'm looking for. Do you have any resources? I think I'm seeing people in the arts right now really embracing this opportunity to share resources. And so this is part of that, right? So keep the conversation going. Please reach out to us at Opening Act. Put your contact information in the chat so you can reach out to each other. This is exactly the type of space that we were hoping to create, and already we can see that a lot of people are eager to collaborate with each other.
All right, and so it is 1:48. We'll give you about 2 or 3 more minutes if you guys want to connect in the chat. But again, on behalf of Opening Act, as the executive director, I've been in a role now for about 6 months, and I can attest to the value of having paid interns. I can attest to the value of being able to provide an opportunity for young people to grow and to develop, and like Sarah just said, creating a safe space for them to really deconstruct some of the myths around what it takes to be gainfully employed. And so I just want to say thank you to Kylie, Sarah, Carol, and Ami for just being very upfront, honest, and really helping all of our attendees to understand that a paid internship is invaluable. It is invaluable, and it will have a long-term impact, not only for the organization, but for the young person who you open your doors to and you say, let's do this work together. I am equally as invested in you as you are into helping my particular organization fulfill its mission and vision. And so to everyone, have a wonderful afternoon at Opening Act. We hope that you stay well. And again, if you are actively seeking interns, I believe Kathleen, who's on our team, she put it in the chat. You can reach out to us at Opening Act. Email address is hello@openingact.org. You can reach out to DIAL. I don't know, Ami, can you put?
Yes, I put my email right below.
Yes, Ami's email is right below. And you know, let's continue to have these conversations and have safe spaces to talk about the importance of just continuing to stay mission driven. So have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. This is great.
Thank you very much.